All right. I'm going to start recording.
Okay.
Let's do it. And we're rolling. And very gracious welcome to our guest this week, Chris from Brooklyn from High Society Radio. And he has a new podcast called Notes of a Goon.
Yeah. I mean, we're 16 episodes in. It's not super new anymore. But yeah, it's a new podcast. I guess it's a lot like the old podcast, except it's just me talking to a fucking brick wall instead of
right. It's hard. It's hard, isn't it? I had to do a solo episode a couple weeks, like a few weeks ago, and I could only make it like 30 minutes.
That's why I kind of have to have a producer there, because at least I'm yelling at there's somebody I
True.
know somebody's listening while I'm recording. I used to have to try to, when I would do interviews, I would do intros for them, and it would take me like 5 takes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now it's going pretty. It's a little easier, but yeah, you have to be a real fucking narcissist to be able to just go for a fucking hour.
Mm-hmm.
No one around to hear you.
Yeah, I was surprised by the amount of times I would get out of breath. And I've been podcasting for a while, and I've never had that sensation before when I'm doing it with anybody else. But when I did it by myself, I felt like a fucking, like a dog that was out in the sun. And yeah. Anyway, but I've actually we exchanged emails as early as I want to say 6 or 7 years ago.
Really?
Back when you were actually very active, I found on the Ron and Fez subreddit.
Oh yeah, years ago.
Yeah. And we exchanged a few. I had trouble. I think I had trouble finding the High Society Radio RSS feed, and you helped me out. And
yeah, we were a fucking mess. I didn't know. If you listen to the new podcast, I say it in the second episode, I didn't own a computer until 3 years into me podcasting.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to do this shit in internet cafes. And it was just, we had this dude, Mark Reynolds, who's a fan, who's become a friend. He was running a website, but it was hosted on an air conditioning website that he had built for a buddy of his in Florida. And it was just, we lost dozens of episodes that are just gone. They're just in I had a corrupted hard drive years later that had them on him and then just died. And I was just like, well, that's that.
Yeah.
Yep.
A hole in this continuity.
Just a piece of my past that will never be relit. It really sucks too, especially when it's an episode you like and you lost. A couple of weeks ago, we had an episode. We had Bob Levy on our bonus episode, and it was a really fun episode. And then I don't even know if I want to admit to the audience what I accidentally did that caused it to fuck up, but it's gone. And I was fucking mortified and miserable about it. So
we had an old producer. We came in to do an episode and we ended up having to do, we were literally we're not doing another one today. We'll come in another time.
Yeah.
But we were banking up an episode and it was just probably we were literally sitting there going, this is one of the best shows we've ever done. And
yeah, it's always that way.
He just didn't hit record.
Wow. That's probably what made it good. It's somehow you knew.
Yeah, the quantum mechanics of him not pressing the button is what caused you to be really on that day.
Yeah.
It's I was just saying to Scott that I take notes, but I rarely actually read them. But just the act of writing them makes me remember stuff better.
Yeah, I have the same thing.
Yeah.
And I actually I did some research on this year, a couple months ago. And I used to take the worst possible notes in high school, but I was always very good at test taking. But if you looked at my notes,
right.
I had my teachers look at my notes and be like, I don't understand how you're getting, they assume cheating.
Yeah.
And it was just I was like, no, I just, by drawing a cat on this picture, remembered everything you said. And there is a bunch of studies where just the act of drawing while listening and taking notes, doodling while taking notes, increases some people's memory of whatever they're taking in.
Yeah.
Right.
It just gets something firing in your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it probably imprints it on your memory as well. But I most of the time I can't even read my own notes because my writing is terrible.
Same.
I know I'm not even going to read them anyway. So it's just the I don't know, kidding myself into thinking I've written it down, but anyway, there you go. It works.
Anyway, so this topic we did, this is a topic, by the way, I'm about to get fired up talking about this. Yeah. And also like our one of our like most downloaded episodes prior to this is the Ruby Ridge episode, because also for same reason, get fired up. But this is the topic of the massacre at Waco in 1990, February to April 1993. And wow,
it's even individual freedoms. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That guy wants to have 140 wives, and some of them are 12.
Yeah.
I mean, who?
Yeah, man.
Say he shouldn't stockpile guns. I mean,
yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like when, like you do, like being, I'm from Boston. I know you're from New York, Chris. But being in places like this, like it sometimes is kind of hard. It's kind of a hard sell to my like coastal elite, for lack of a better word, associates and like coworkers and whatnot, to be like, yeah, I do think he should be able to have an RPG.
Oh yeah, I don't really have any issue with that. I mean, look, probably shouldn't have been. There was no actual evidence that he was touching kids. It's just like something that was like
hearsay, and there was an article in the paper the day before, like basically the whole thing popped off, and it stinks very much of CIA news. I'm just saying
the fucking Waco price chopper. I don't really know if I fucking trust their articles.
Yeah.
You just got a guy living with a bunch of people saying some crazy shit. You know what I mean? Like I was just reading about this guy where he was David Koresh wanted to be a rock star, and he had like T-shirts printed that said like "God rocks" with his Christian rock band on right before all this went down. It's just like it's like I think that guy just was rubbing people the wrong way in Waco, and he's like, it's probably fucking kids.
Well, actually, I'm pretty well researched on it. The main fucking kids allegation came from a guy an Australian guy who had been at the compound, and he was the guy that first put the
fuck the kids.
It's like, I know, mate, these fucking kids. But I mean, so the actual situation, according to everybody who was there, including this guy, was that he was fucking some 14-year-olds, but I mean, the fucking was only for procreation, and he was technically married to some girls who were younger than that, but didn't fuck them, and that's so
like the Prophet Muhammad.
Allegation of pedophilia.
Yeah, but it wasn't. Yeah, but in Texas at the time, 14 was legal. So
really,
so the local sheriff,
with parental consent, I believe, in one of the documentaries I viewed that
it is in a lot of Europe right now.
Yeah, and also the parents did live there. I'm assuming, like the way that these groups work is that your entire family would be there for multiple generations.
But only
if no doubt that he got consent. That's bizarre that it would be 15. I thought it was like 16 was the youngest.
No,
I think in America now, but it was a different time.
At the time in Texas, it was legal. So this Aussie guy left. I mean, and the thing of somebody leaving isn't as big a deal as what it's made up of, as what you would think, because there were only about 50 people who lived there permanently anyway. And there were people coming and going all the time. They came from all over the world, mainly Great Britain, strangely enough. And a lot of Brits and Australians, but people from all over the place used to go there.
Yeah, they had black people, a Jewish guy. Is a fucking motley crew.
They'd go there. They'd go and go there for 2 weeks or a month or something and do some Bible studies courses. And these weren't just, for the most part, they weren't just kind of idiot losers. A lot of them were high, PhD level theology students who had gone there to continue that, who would go there to continue their studies. And
wait, so like the plot of Midsummer?
That came up on the
kind of, but except they got there and instead of spoiler, they ended up just getting cucked.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
But I mean,
pretty much.
like the people who weren't permanently there, I guess that probably didn't happen to. But there were a couple of Aussies who went there and got annoyed with it and weren't just content to leave. They had to leave and then tell stories about it, and fair enough. But the sheriff's department investigated these allegations, found them to be true, but also found them to be not a criminal offense, and so
or non-legally actionable, perhaps would even be the way to say it.
Yeah, whatever. He spoke to found out what had been going on, confirmed that what this Australian guy had said was true, asked the parents if they'd consented to it, and they said yes. And so he said, well, that's it then. End of story. And so that was that. But the gun thing was, the reason they had a lot of guns was they were
in Texas
making money.
Yeah. So as opposed to Scientology, which we did with Andrew Valentino a couple of weeks ago, where they just fleece you, the business model of Mount Carmel was they had like a automobile workshop and stuff. They ran businesses to fund the place. And one of the businesses they'd got into, Koresh had got to know this gun dealer guy, a licensed gun dealer.
Yeah, let me get that guy's name up.
And he'd given him the DOS on how to make, because like there was an incoming Democratic regime under Bill Clinton,
right?
And there was a lot of fear about guns being banned, like there is now. So there was a shortage of ammunition. Guns were in short supply. Certain kinds of guns were
NRA was doing its old NRA tricks by going, oh boy, the big scary Democrats are going to come and take all your guns. You better buy more.
Yeah.
And people like Koresh and company ended up profiting off of that on the short run.
Yeah. So they were stockpiling guns to sell them after they became harder to get. So they were going to gun shows every weekend and buying and selling guns at gun shows. And actually at the time of the raid, like 90% of the stock of their armory was in a trailer on its way to a gun show.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that guy's name. Hang on, it's Cada or something. It's something Italian.
Wait, were they breaking the law with the gun flipping, or was that just completely?
No, that was technically all legal. In fact, the guy that I was just trying to find the name of, he was a federally licensed gun dealer.
But it was just high volume, so that's why. I don't understand why they were being investigated.
There was an allegation that they were converting some rifles to fully automatic.
Basically, they were taking AK-47 bodies and then putting on an AR-15 receiver, I believe, and making them. Technically it would make it an fully automatic. But I mean, listen, this is America. I thought this was fucking America.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's particularly unusual in Texas. Really,
no.
The motivation for the raid, if you ask me, and we're segueing all the way back to our
all about cock blocking.
Yeah,
he was too much of a pussy-getting monster, and they're like, we got to put a stop to us. He's making us all look bad.
The original raid wasn't about the Chomo stuff. It was really about Ruby Ridge, is what it was about.
Okay,
right?
Because it was timed. So what they did, the ATF showed up with a load of videotape and cameras. And their press secretary woman was phoning journalists up over the weekend to tell them, well, we've got something big happening tomorrow.
Apparently there was a hearing coming up in literally a couple weeks, because they were going to be asking for another budget and for the first time, by the way, under the Clinton administration. And the thinking at the time was that that they were going to cut a lot of the Reagan era, like drug war type programs. Of course, they had no interest in doing that, and they wanted to incarcerate a lot more people. But the thought at the time, or that's at least what the Republicans were saying as fear mongering.
But also the verdicts in the Ruby Ridge case were coming down, which they knew were going to be not guilty.
Right.
So it was like they knew there was going to be a lot of publicity about the Randy Weaver case. And it wasn't going to make them look good. So they thought, well, this is going to be a cakewalk. We'll turn up with hundreds of guys with weapons, and we'll take this place over, and it'll look.
And
cool.
no one's gonna sympathize with these fucking crazy polygamists.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Nobody is gonna give a shit. Especially like, have you guys ever looked up the Branch Davidian flag?
Yeah,
No.
it's pretty fucking wild. It's like
looks like
a Star of David and a snake.
It looks like an evil cum fucking cell. What are you talking? It looks like an evil sperm cell attacking Israel.
I can see that.
Yeah, like it's just like we'll just put this fucking weird sperm flag on the fucking news and be like, don't come on me instead of don't tread on me. And then that's it.
Yeah.
It's like, I get that. So basically they needed a W and they were like, well, the optics of Ruby Ridge, the fucking raid looked good. They're like, let's do that again, and that'll distract from the loss on the back end.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They were basically, they thought this was going to be an easy W, and it was going to make them look good when they were up for budget review, and the Ruby Ridge thing was all coming to a head in the courts, so which made them look bad. So it was like it was a big PR stunt on their part, and they thought,
right,
it'll be easy. These guys are fucking idiots.
Plus, like they're probably getting some trickle down money for undercover operations, like the one we saw in Ruby Ridge, by the way, from Operation PatCon, which is an FBI program very similar to what the fuck was the one in the 60s where they COINTELPRO, but it was in infiltration into right wing groups. And these ATF guys were dying to use some of this budget they set up this absurd surveillance house where they posed as college students across the street from the Branch Davidians' house, Mount Carmel. And except they were in their mid 30s, drove brand new SUVs, and had $100 sunglasses on, like college students usually look.
Also, and they were in Mount Carmel, home of the University of Mount Carmel. It's the worst. Student accommodation. There's a big demand for student accommodation right in the middle of nowhere in Texas.
Yeah.
So these guys were there, and they thought they'd infiltrated it, didn't they? But technically
they had, because the main point guy is this guy named was Robert Rodriguez. Coincidentally,
he took a break from his screenwriting career.
Yeah, his film career.
They were transporting all of the guns in guitar cases.
That's good.
Yeah. They were praying wearing knuckle dusters.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
this Rodriguez dude was, there's talk that he was on the verge of being converted to being a Branch Davidian.
Right. In one interview, apparently, he said that in his time infiltrating the group, that he was kind of taken in by David Koresh.
Yeah. But he, Rodriguez, Koresh knew that he was. He
revealed on the last day before the raid that he knew that he was an agent, and he said, "So when are you going to come and raid?"
Yeah.
And actually, this is one of the first pieces of controversy related to it, is that Rodriguez officially went to his superior in the ATF and said, "We got to call this off. The element of surprise is gone. This is going to be a fucking bloodbath." And that piece of information was never distributed, because I'm assuming the incentives were in motion at this point, that they had already called fucking press and shit. And
weird shit where they there was like the hostage negotiators had like a contentious relationship with the guys who kick in the door, correct?
Yeah, but that comes later. This is like before the raid, because that was the
this is before the initial raid.
Yeah, so that was the hostage negotiators was when the FBI had taken it over.
Yes.
So the ATF were completely defeated in this engagement.
Yeah, and furthermore, awesome. They also good.
Yeah,
fuck those fucking.
You got to feel pretty good about that to beat like a sub boss of the United States government. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah. The most jackboot of thugs, too, by the way.
Yeah. The
ATF is just like, it's like, those things that are legal, but we just kind of want to be dicks about.
Yeah.
That's our job.
That's our purview. And we'll throw you in fuck me in the ass federal prison too, bitch.
Yeah. What are you not a stamp on those Newports? Get
shit.
Well, it's right. I mean, it's the same as that. What they call that fat guy who got choked out on Staten Island?
Eric Gardner.
So,
Eric Garner, yeah.
I mean,
say his
name.
name.
A lot of things, I'm sure, in Staten Island. Elsewhere, they call him Eric Gardner.
But if you say what caused that, it was taxation on cigarettes that caused that.
Oh yeah,
because like the shop owner called the police because he's got to.
He's trying to make an honest buck while paying all the duties and whatnot.
He's got to pay duty on the cigarettes and all the taxes on having premises, and he's got some guy selling duty-free, tax-free cigarettes outside. He's pissed off. He's going to call the cops. Leads to this whole standoff. If there was no tax on cigarettes, there'd be nobody standing outside selling loosies. The guys in the shops would be able to make a living out of it easy.
See, the real problem there was that they called the NYPD. They should have called the ATF to take care of this tobacco problem. They bring down fucking flashbangs and throw it at Eric Garner. Jesus Christ.
They'd have taken him out with a sniper.
Yeah, probably. What's it called? Anyway, so the fact of the matter was that there was no element of surprise on this raid that took place on, February 28th. Yes.
Yeah, they lost the element of surprise. But I mean, they kind of pissed the element of surprise away anyway, because before they didn't knock on, it was a knock warrant. It wasn't a no-knock warrant.
Yes.
And
I don't believe they existed yet.
Yeah, but they came from this really, didn't they?
Yeah, really though.
So before they did anything else.
But it wouldn't have helped them anyway.
No. But before
not against these guys, no.
They shot the dogs, right?
Which is standard Ruby Ridge procedure, by the way.
And David Koresh knew they were coming, so he just told everybody to go and sort of lay low. And he went to the door and says, "Hey, look, guys, we've got women and kids in here." And basically, they just opened up on him. He was holding the door open, talking to them, unarmed, and the door got blasted out of his hand, and there was an old guy inside. I forget his name. I'm not good with names on this, but who got shot in the abdomen.
Was this Steve Schneider?
No, and Koresh got shot in the belly.
Yeah, it kind of went through his side.
I think he got that one later. I think this one they got him in the
hand.
Yeah, in the hand. Yeah.
Yeah.
He got the stigmata.
Yeah, so I guess some of it. Yeah, William before the show was saying basically everything that Koresh predicted happened.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing with the theological side of it. It's really interesting because, the feds, almost as if, I mean, the story, as the story goes, and as best as I can understand it, they didn't care to understand what his ideas were. They just thought, it's just some religious nutcase.
Yeah. In fact, they had one guy in the negotiation squad that was like a theologian, and was trying to give them advice to like maybe heed to some of their demands for their religious shit. And the command really wasn't interested in doing that for the reason you're saying, William.
Well, I saw that again, it's later, but they did get him on. They were trying to get him on the Christian Broadcasting Network or something.
Right. Yeah, they did that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, and it just seemed like regular Bible shit. I mean, what was that hokey about? I didn't really quite get what was that much more wanting. Are these some of these 5,000-year-old Earth people?
Pretty much. They're very similar in to regular people like us to Jehovah's Witnesses. They're like Bible literalists, and there's no birthdays. You got to be kosher. You can't serve in the military. All that kind of happy horse shit.
They're extreme Protestants, basically.
Right.
That the word of the Bible is it.
Literally what each person has their own personal relationship with the text because it's from God or whatever.
What was phenomenal about Koresh was that he was everybody who, I mean, I've sort of studied it a fair bit over the years because I'm interested in it, and everybody who ever was part of the Branch Davidians, even the people who've kind of turned on Koresh now to get interviews with the mainstream media or whatever, or maybe they genuinely believe it or whatever, they all say that his comprehension of the Bible was absolutely stunning, and it wasn't like nobody who ever had anything to do with him said he was a manipulator or like a cult type guy.
Yeah, not Charles Manson.
They were just
like even like the guys that are left, like there was like 10 guys who survived this whole fucking thing, right?
Yeah, they love it still. Yeah,
they still kind of practice this shit. They call themselves something else.
Yeah,
but
I think the name was a little bit tarnished at that point.
Yeah, well, there's a guy from England who was in there called Livingston Fagan, and they sent him out. Comes later on while the FBI were in charge. They sent him out to basically to test if they could trust the FBI. So that we'll come to this later, but they sent him out, and that's how he survived. But he was a PhD theologian, and he teaches at Nottingham University now, which is like an hour away from me. He's a fucking smart guy, and he's still 100% on board with Koresh. And like he did an interview in 2018 where he said, "I wish I could have been in there and died with him." Right. So
did they think they believed he was the Messiah?
They were all impressed.
He was a prophet.
So this is what's really interesting about this, which backs up their belief, right? David Koresh was dyslexic, right? But he had guys who've done 5 years at university studying the Bible being blown away by his ability to interpret the Bible, and he knew the whole fucking thing off by heart, right?
But maybe just being a little off mentally helps you interpret the Bible.
Yeah, but it doesn't help you read, though. Yeah. The guy could barely read.
I'm just saying, throw a couple of them in an ESL class and let's see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
7 of these guys.
Give the guy a typewriter.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I don't understand. I don't even really know what theology is, but people who do also like
really respect David Koresh.
Those Christian radio guys say the same thing as well. They say his interpretation of the Bible is not bullshit. It's like it's
no.
Yeah,
every interpretation of the Bible is bullshit. Yeah, but, unless your interpretation of the Bible is that's an all right book.
Yeah, but you could say the same thing about psychology or anything like that.
And I do.
Yeah, but
I'm very Scientology that way.
Within the field, it's his teachings are respected. So he's not like a crank, is what I'm saying, and he's also been able to absorb all this information somehow without really being able to read, which is fucking amazing.
Basically, what it came down to,
Ricky Ross sold $1 billion worth of crack without being able to read. All right, I'm a little more impressed.
But with the help of the CIA, as opposed to the ire of the CIA.
That's true. That's fair.
Anyway, but no, basically what his whole thing was was this concept of the 7 seals, which is like a series of how do I put this? A series of
ripoff from the late 80s.
Yes. No, that was Turtles in Time.
Yeah, okay.
Well, actually, he said Koresh thought everybody at Waco thought Koresh was the Lamb of God. That's what they thought he was.
Yeah, but he claimed to be some sort of prophet, and basically this form of it's an offshoot of Seventh-day Adventism, which is from around like the mid to late 1800s. And basically baked into the idea of it is the idea that end times are coming, and like there's been like many different sects of Seventh-day Adventists, and this is just one of them. And he felt that his end times are coming. In fact, the same group of people that had 2 predictions prior in the last 50 years that the world was going to end.
Yeah, it's that like this whole. From my entire education was Church of England,
Mhm.
and all we ever looked at was the Gospels, because I think the mainstream religions try and keep you away from this weird shit in the
it's all like weird occult shit that's like, wrapped up in the origins of fucking, mythology and, the origins of the fucking weird Jewish conspiracy that we still live under today.
I mean, it's just the way I think it's just the way people thought back then, right? Like, it's just like everything was creepy because you had no scientific knowledge of anything.
And things were bad too, by the way.
Also, the reason that shit's probably in the Bible is that's what people were more familiar with then, and the Gospels were something new that they were trying to steer them into. Whereas now, so the Church of England has brought me up with the Gospels, but which is kind of a design for life and how to be a good citizen kind of idea. Whereas
it's a word of Christ.
They basically completely kept us away from the Book of Revelations. But on the other hand, maybe it all is true, and the Church of England is certainly, from its very design, as we covered in our Henry VIII episode, it is designed purely to be a tool of state oppression.
Right.
That's all it is.
So wasn't it just because Henry VIII wanted to get divorced?
Yeah. But
he got sick of cutting the heads off bitches.
But it also, in creation of the religion, though, he also was able to plunder all of the Catholic, churches and shit, and it made a shitload of money. And
and if you didn't,
let's not knock the Catholic Church for being good at plundering. Like, are you aware of some of the shit they do here in the United States just to keep land?
Yeah.
Bad stuff.
They'll literally have eminent domain on empty parts of cemeteries that haven't been used for hundreds of years, and they'll throw a couple of hobo skeletons in there and not even put a headstone on them. But you can't dig it up for a highway. We got a couple bums dead in there. It's a resting place.
Well, to be fair, everybody should be able to do that.
No, it's true. Eminent domain is awful, but it's just like some of the shit where they're just like, we're just not. And they also don't have to pay taxes.
Right.
They're not paying property tax on that where everybody else has to. It's like, all right, give it up and build a highway.
Yeah.
They're probably, but I think I've heard a statistic. Of course, this is absent, the fucking church, the fucking literal secret reptilian people, but that it is like one of the most wealthy organizations in the whole world still today, the Catholic Church.
The Church of England. The Church of England is the biggest landowner in Great Britain.
The Catholic Church is the biggest landowner in the world.
Yeah. I would say it easily makes that.
I mean, church is owning. I mean, I get a church owning the land that the church itself is on. I get that. That's cool. But like churches being landlords, it kind of stinks. That it's not. I don't think Jesus was a landlord. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know. He was Jewish. He
was a hard money lender too.
Yeah. Bug.
Can you imagine the
on a mountain?
The Virgin Mary said, "Oh Jesus, why don't you just be a doctor? You could be a lawyer."
But Mom, I gotta get rid of the money lenders in the Temple of David. It's awful. Anyway,
Joseph, will you talk to this kid?
Anyway, fucking, where were we? I forget. So let's go straight to the fucking siege, the raid, I should say. As much as we could talk about theology all day, probably, but we have a story to tell
now.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, so again, the element of surprise had been ruined, and they decided that it was already too late, I guess, and they had to go through with it. So they brought up what was a group of, I want to say, like 20 agents. William,
there was like they reckon 70 in cattle trailers got brought up.
70.
Yeah, it was like somewhere between 50 and 100 agents. 2 cattle trailers.
Were they Borat?
Yeah. They had these big cattle trailers behind twin wheelers with tarps over them, because that means you won't know what's inside. You'll think,
Yeah.
Maybe
they just brought us some cows. Yeah.
Oh, somebody brought us some milking cows.
They literally tried to do like a fucking Trojan horse.
Yeah. The Trojan cow.
Well, they called it Operation Trojan Horse, and their idea of a Trojan horse is a cattle trailer with a tarp over it.
Good on them, dude. Also,
awesome.
Another thing,
Texas, what are they going to let in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cows.
I mean, 50 head of cattle here. It was like, well, I guess we're out of the gun business now.
Do you know
we're making burgers?
Maybe that if they'd have turned up, if those trailers had cattle in them, and they said, and David Koresh stuck his head out the door, and instead of trying to shoot it off, they said, "Hey, Dave, we'll swap you these cows for all your guns." He might have gone for it.
Maybe.
It worked out. It would have worked out better than what they tried.
So another thing was that they also trumped up and said that based on hearsay, basically said that there was possibly a methamphetamine lab.
Yeah.
Which obviously there's no evidence. The place burned down. It would have exploded if there was a meth lab there. And also, being that they're gun people, I would imagine that they wouldn't want to keep something so as unstable as a meth lab on their premises.
But it is really good for dyslexia. You know what I mean? It really helps you focus. You know, what I mean? It's like double Adderall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just bullshit.
It was able. They were able to get some DoD funding and equipment as a result.
Oh, that was it. Yeah, because they said they had to say it was part of the war on drugs.
War on drugs, right?
Thanks. So it was the FBI that did that, wasn't it?
Well, it goes all the way back to the ATF, right?
Does it? Oh, right. Okay. So yeah, but they basically wanted to make it look good on TV, and what they did was the opposite. So that they started the Branch Davidians.
They also called the raid's code name Showtime. What a bunch of fucking assholes.
Yeah. Yeah, and also
maybe they were really big fans of the Mask movie that had just come out.
Yeah.
So with regard to the first engagement, where they started shooting at Koresh when he stuck his head out the door, and tried to reason with him, they claim that the Branch Davidians opened fire first.
Complete malarkey.
Yeah, but two lawyers went in to speak to them during the siege later on and said that all the bullet holes were going inwards on the door, and the door was miraculously destroyed completely in the fire, so couldn't be examined afterwards. And the two video cameras that were videoing the exchange, they lost the tapes out of them. So that's a Epstein didn't kill himself moment right there. Yeah. That's bullshit. So I totally believe the Branch Davidians on that one. And they basically started assaulting. So they had ladders. The ATF had put ladders up against the side of the building. The Branch Davidians were shooting back at this point.
Right, and also the helicopters had come too, and they had this was the part about the drug war thing. They were able to secure Texas, what's the word? National Guard troops to fly in Black Hawk helicopters overhead.
Oh, were they doing like infrared shit to look for a drug lab or something?
They were fucking just shooting.
Yeah.
They were just shooting at
wild
them.
Boar and wolves under them.
Yeah.
They regretted bringing that. They regretted bringing that infrared camera shit there in the end.
Yeah, it ended up backfiring on them later on, huh?
I mean, everything the feds did, as everything the feds always do, was both dumb and evil
and gay.
Yeah. So these guys shin up a ladder and smash one of the bedroom windows out, and three of them pile in, and one of them's still on the roof, like on the eaves of the roof.
Mm-hmm. I think he ate a bullet, didn't he?
So the three guys go and start spraying bullets around in the house. And there's a few guys in the house who've got rifles who make them leave.
They had all kinds of guns. I think they mentioned that like a lot of the small arms fire returned was from people with just like a pistol.
Yeah. But this my neighbor Livingston Fagan was, you see there's an iconic shot of the ATF guy getting shot through the shoulder when he's
Yeah.
up
In the
against
window,
that wall.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it was
You
probably.
think they would have got a better ladder? It was just a fucking painter's ladder, and not like a very expensive looking one either.
Yeah.
The WWF has sturdier ladders.
Yeah.
What do you want? They're the bigger federation,
Yeah. It was brand new.
Yeah.
But yeah, Livingston Fagan was the guy in the bedroom who was shooting.
Nice.
Because he says, I don't know if I shot that guy or not, but I did shoot at him. So
Based.
yeah. But I mean, it's terribly. This is as good a point as any, because when I see that, I think this following thought that the popular idea is that the Branch Davidians were a cult and they're all being brainwashed into acting this way. But when you think of the guys, a lot of people got killed in this engagement. There's 6 Branch Davidians and 4 ATF agents got killed during this fight, and they were both at least equally cultish. Because if you asked, if they'd have been honest, those DEA, they think they've been brainwashed into thinking they're standing up for America by going into somebody's house who's never going to hurt anybody, shooting the place up. I mean, the video of the way they were assaulting the house, it's pathetic. It's like they've never held a gun before. They're all like standing up behind SUVs and just emptying magazines out blindly through the walls of this house.
Yeah.
Fucking crazy.
And they went until they ran out of bullets.
Yeah, that's what the only thing that stopped them was they ran out of ammo. And the Branch Davidians didn't.
Yeah, they didn't even come close.
The house did pull out a wallet really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he didn't know it was a phone. But
shit.
The house said, hands up, don't shoot.
Yeah.
But they
interesting connection though. Later on during the siege, after this event, they did actually shake out a banner spray painted that said Rodney King, we understand.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
well. I mean, at that point, you're just trying to get some sympathy, right? Like you're in there.
Well, also half the people in there were black, not for nothing.
Yeah.
Was it half?
Pretty close, yeah.
Really? I know.
I think about 30% of them were black and from England.
Yeah.
So they had half of your black people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have plenty. Well,
at the time,
our black people are mainly.
They've restocked now.
Yeah.
We have plenty of West Indians, but we call them black people. I know there's like a distinction, isn't there, in America between Caribbean people.
They're the ones who want to be distinct about it. I still call them black people.
Yeah,
they're all black people. Just some of them are West Indian and some of them are American black people.
But that, like, you'd call a West Indian person a black person here, whereas an African you'd call an African, if you know what I mean, because that's the 2 different kinds we have now. We hardly had any Africans back in those days. We've got more now.
Where'd you get them? Africa?
Yeah, they've a lot of them come from Nigeria, I think, and they come and work.
It's funny because like Africans are like it's like you guys Cubans.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. I mean,
I can see that.
Do Cubans work really hard in factories and stuff like that?
I mean, cigar factories and other than that, I don't know.
Yeah.
They make a mean sandwich, I tell you that much.
Yeah, they definitely know how to use. They know their way around a panini press. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a byproduct of the British Empire having been so big that we have a lot of people from all kinds of different places here. But it's I think the sort of global capitalism's thirst for cheap labor has started sucking people more from Africa than it used to do. Whereas it used to. The first wave was more organized, and that was in the 50s, and it was from Jamaica and places like that. So,
well, Jamaican people, people from Bermuda consider themselves British, right?
Yeah, I think they technically are.
And Jamaican,
they're technically citizens.
Yeah,
right.
No, they're Jamaica is now independent.
But a lot of them do still consider themselves connected. It's like almost like
Yeah.
some Canadians do.
I mean, they play cricket,
Okay. Yeah.
so they're more British than Canadians are.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is
Hockey
where
is
the
just cricket on a frozen lake.
I can see some similarities, at least visually.
Yeah, well, you definitely lose your teeth in both games.
So at this point, this is where the raid became a standoff and like a siege. And it went for 50, I want to say 51 days.
It did go for 51 days, yeah. But
Right.
basically, at this point, the ATF were defeated, and it was a huge embarrassment, a complete backfire.
I mean, they had chicks shooting too, dude. It was embarrassing.
Yeah. And so that the FBI took it over, but there was a big political thing going on. I'm gonna have to consult my notes here. There was a political.
One of the things that I gleaned from, and by the way, a lot of these tapes of inside the Mount Carmel are lost to time and censorship, as it were. But one of the things that, fire too. But Koresh had, like, he was on camera and he was showing off like a wound that went through his side. Yeah. And he said when the FBI took over, it was like, you know, when two neighbor boys live a house over and the younger one beats you up and then the other one comes to investigate what's going on over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is like that. They were instantly charged. They were charged in absentia with murder, by the way, at this point.
Right.
So they were charged before they were, well, they were never arrested, but they were all charged with murder. Straight away.
And conspiracy to commit
the murder of the 4 ATF agents
who were breaking into the house. Yeah. So
how can you be accused of a conspiracy to commit murder when somebody rang your bell?
They didn't even ring the bell. They just broke the window and climbed in. like the lawyers were saying that it's absolutely established fact that even if the police announce themselves, which they didn't, if they use excessive force in an arrest, you're allowed to use force to defend yourself.
Right. There was a pretty landmark case kind of recently where there was a no-knock raid in the South. I think it was Texas, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. And they went to the wrong house. Yeah. And this guy who was not expecting a fucking thing and was not a criminal defended himself against the cops, killed one, and the guy walked.
Yeah, good.
What color was he?
He was white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Checks out. Story checks out.
Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, it is true. And this is these people who say, oh, Breonna Taylor she was hanging out with drug dealers, or she was a drug dealer. She fired the first shot. Yeah, exactly.
Drug dealers are awesome. You ever hang out with them? They got great stories, good drugs.
Yeah.
Like, it's like plenty. They're usually pretty fucking generous with their money. Like,
this is my point, that the Breonna Taylor case is exactly the same as the Waco case, regardless of what they've been up to. You know, even if David Koresh was fucking 12-year-olds or whatever, it does not justify what happened.
No, not to this level either.
If all the bullshit propaganda they say about Breonna Taylor is true, then still doesn't justify.
Which, by the way, nowhere near as bad as fucking a 12-year-old.
No, but no, there's nothing wrong with all the stuff that is supposed to make her a bad person.
But notice the propaganda machine, propaganda machine, just like in the Breonna Taylor story that you guys are talking about. Well, oh, dude, he was fucking, you know, they were hanging out. Yeah. The fucking Anthony Cumia take. We get it.
Yeah.
But what's it called? The same thing happens though. The propaganda machine gets right to fucking work, and they immediately smear her and also the fucking Waco people as you know. They start using words like bunker. They start using using words like doomsday cult.
That they had just used and it's not they do it with shipping containers now, but they just use a school bus to just kind of build a basement without having to add more foundation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just do that with storage containers now, and you get a fucking prize for recycling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was only one little road. In fact, they used it as the fucking like the fucking dry food storage area.
So it was just a pantry.
Yes, it literally was just a pantry.
That's like there's a convert. There used to be a converted school bus that a guy served tacos out of. If you go shoot that guy, I'm gonna be pretty pissed. You know
yeah.
I mean?
Especially if those tacos are good.
Yeah.
So on this propaganda thing, there's this Henry Clay quote, who's a congressman in the 1800s.
He was a Whig.
Yeah, he was a Whig. He invented the Whig Party. So the arts of power and its minions are the same in all countries and in all ages. It marks its victim, denounces it, and excites all the public odium and the public hatred to conceal its own abuses and encroachments. And that's exactly Waco, and it's exactly Breonna Taylor. And every other thing where, you know, there's some chance of, as soon as people start believing the side of the oppressed, then the same old people trot out the same old bullshit, just like way back in the 1800s. This guy was talking about that it always happened before that. It's just, we should get over that shit by now and just trust people or just leave people alone. How about that? You know,
the thing with the fact that you brought up Breonna Taylor too is actually a great segue for like my whole take on this Waco thing is basically that this was like the test case in the 1990s where they basically saw how badly they could smear a genuine victim of state violence and get the entire country to cheer it on.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be fair, they had been doing that for fucking a decade with the fucking crack war. You know what I mean? Like, it had been going on for a while. They just were doing it with these guys now.
Go ahead.
That's the funny thing. You brought up the meth thing. And I always think about this. I saw, you know, every once in a while you see like a fucking long-winded post somewhere on the internet about how, you know, the drug war changed when it became opiates in white neighborhoods. It was like, it's
a fucking weak take. Yeah.
As soon as it involved the fucking pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry, then all of a sudden it was a mental health issue. Yeah. When all of a sudden a bunch of people who were given
in Afghanistan and endless wars.
Yeah. Because when it was meth, it was still all a white problem, right?
Yeah.
Crack war, meth was destroying the country, a lot of parts of the country, and nobody gave a fuck. Like you could literally just say, I mean, whatever, they did it to George Floyd, right?
Yeah.
George Floyd was supposedly on meth and fentanyl.
Yeah. So what?
Weird combo, by the way, just saying.
I mean, to be fair, it is just like, that's like the cyberpunk speedball, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
I think he was just on whatever he could get.
Yeah, sure.
I bet both of those things were in his system because he ate something he thought was ecstasy.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. That's a nice way to mix that up. But what's it called?
If he worked
the thing I wanted to say though, the thing that's interesting about the Waco, like you said before, the whole country was cheering on, well, these horrible crack dealers, it's ruining the inner cities. Yeah, of course. But at the same time, this was the first time that they literally, like we said before, they invented the no-knock raid with this.
Yeah.
And
then they started using it there. Yeah.
Right. And then one of the big quotes on the that came out of, I believe the guy who said it was one of the main point men in the FBI. He said basically that that this marked the end of a guy in a two-piece suit coming to serve you a warrant.
Yeah.
This was the new way we were going to do it, and this was the only way, he said, that I'm going to protect you people from the David Koreshes of the world.
Well, they would have just served the fucking guy a warrant. He probably would have been like, yeah, whatever, take your guns, we'll get some more.
Well, yeah. the guy went running every day. They could have this is the same with Breonna Taylor and all these no-knock raids. They could just pick Duncan Lemp. They could have just picked him up while he was out on the street and then go and search the place. You know?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, yeah, what are you doing? Like, it's like, what are you catching them differently?
Yeah.
Like, you just watch them leave and then grab them.
I think they just think it's going to be like it's going to be like Operation Showtime. We did it, boys. It's good optics.
Yeah. They've got all this equipment. They want to use it.
Right.
Well, it's like, I mean, I remember I saw it in the NWA documentary. We were just like, they were talking about the tank battering ram that the LAPD had. I think it was during the crack boom, where it was just like, it was just a tank that they just
Yeah.
literally just put a battering ram in the barrel of a tank because they couldn't
Couldn't use the armament.
Yeah. Driving a tank through like a lot of old grandmothers' houses.
Yeah.
Whose spare bedroom had just become stash rooms unwittingly by their grandsons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, what are we fucking doing?
Yeah. It's luckily it hasn't come to that here in England. But everybody who, I mean, I'm kind of repeating myself, but well,
typically people just give up their drugs with a couple of hefty harumphs over there, right?
A little wood shampoo.
Yeah. If a cop just shakes his mustache at you, you usually just give it all up, right?
Well, I mean, I mean, I'm leaning on an open door with you, Chris, but like the whole idea of drug enforcement or religion enforcement and all that, it's like, what's the point of it? It's like, I mean, I've done my fair share of drugs in my time, but I don't do it anymore. I've got over it. I'm an old man. I'm not bothered about it. I don't like them. The thought of doing drugs just.
I think there was that Ron Paul. There's a Ron Paul quote. He was in an interview, and they said, "Oh, so you would advocate even legalizing heroin?" And I think he said something like, "It's not like because it's legal, someone's going to get interested, and it's just maybe I'll try heroin."
Yeah.
Dude, I've said that to so many people, just like in conversation, just that quote, just like people are like, well, you have to have certain things. It was like, I've literally just been like, I can make a phone call and get some heroin. Would you like to do some heroin with me?
Yeah.
And they'll be like, well, no. And I'm like, well, then what are you worried about? Do you think like,
first
of all, like we live in anybody who lives in New York who thinks there should still be a drug war is an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like I knew a guy who used to drive around in an ambulance with heroin. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, what the fuck are we talking about? Like you can literally I was getting drugs that I didn't even know what the fuck they were when I was a kid. Like I didn't know what Foxy was until 5 years after the first time I put it in my mouth. You know what I mean?
What is that?
Just a research chemical. It's like,
oh, okay. We were just talking about those.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I came up with an idea for the legalization of heroin in the UK because we have the National Health Service, socialized healthcare. So there's a scheme here where if you're a heroin addict, or even if you just want to be a heroin addict, you can go to the doctor and tell the doctor you're a heroin addict, and he will register you as a registered heroin user. And that way, the police, when they if they pick you up with some heroin on you and they run your details, they won't arrest you for the heroin if you're a registered user, as long as it's not a dealing amount, right?
Good system.
It varies from police force to police force, but that exists.
Wouldn't it stand to reason if you didn't have a dealing amount of heroin and probably just like, all right, well, this guy has a little bit of heroin and no money on him.
Yeah.
Seems like he probably didn't sell a bunch of heroin.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we cracked we got the kingpin here.
Like, you know what? If you're a heroin addict, I know you're not typically thinking about your health, but can you just go to the doctor real quick?
Yeah. But I mean, they people who are getting into it, I'll go be a registered. Like it's like people who've still got jobs and stuff. They'll go, I'll be a registered user, and then I won't get in trouble. And
you won't get promoted either.
Yeah. my idea is, so you've already got this registered user scheme. Why not, instead of just letting them get away with having if you really want to end the heroin business, instead of just letting them get away with having a small amount of heroin. Excuse me.
Do you think he's going to get some heroin right now?
Yeah.
You never can tell with this guy. He's full of surprises.
It's homespun. So instead of just letting them get away with having a small amount of heroin, why not prescribe them pharmaceutical grade heroin in unlimited amounts and let them have as much of it as they want? So anyone who could go to the doctor and say, I'm a heroin addict, gets free heroin for the rest of their life. There'll be no heroin on the, that's the one way you could put that heroin business out of business, isn't it?
Yeah.
It would also prevent, it would prevent a large amount of overdoses, probably.
Yeah.
Right? Because a lot of times people go back.
They get shitty stuff.
It's not even that. A lot of times people will quit heroin and go back to doing heroin, and their heroin dealer isn't like, hey, dude, you should take it easy. Whereas a doctor your general physician could go, well, you're planning on first of all, your general physician might go, hey, maybe don't relapse on heroin.
Yeah.
And then if you're like, no, give me the heroin, he'd be like, all right, well, I'm going to prescribe you a lower dose of heroin than you used to do. Whereas heroin addicts are like, well, I used to do this much, so I'm going to do
right.
Yeah. And then
that happens so much, dude. I know like 5 people that happened to.
Yeah.
So I mean, you could do that with all drugs. If you really, if the object of the drugs war was to stop the black market in drugs, just make drugs free to anybody who wants them, and that'll. I mean,
that's not what the point of the drug war was. It was in order to create, a way for the CIA to sell drugs in order to finance fucking military coups in South America.
But I mean, like,
I think it became that. I kind of firmly believe the whole Nixon just wanted to demonize hippies and blacks.
Well, that's definitely comes from the CIA too, though. Probably, I would say.
I mean, like, as if he needed to go to those lengths to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a job that takes care of itself.
Oh boy,
humor.
Anyway, so what's it called? So what happened is that so then basically, so it's worth mentioning here that the guy who's in the head of the hostage rescue team in the FBI, because again we said this before, the case was passed over to the FBI at this point. I think partially just because as a matter of policy, any hostage situation, especially at this, high profile, would just go to the FBI. But anyway, the guy who was in charge of the team was the guy who was in charge of the Ruby Ridge incident.
Yeah. And one of the snipers was the guy that shot Vicky Weaver.
Wow, what a bastard.
Yeah. Who was charged with either manslaughter or murder over the shooting of Vicky Weaver.
This was after Waco?
No. This Ruby Ridge was first, right? So
no, I know, but when was he charged? I mean, sometimes that.
He was charged before.
Yeah, but they still sent him to go do this, go kill more rednecks.
He never went. He never went to trial. They dropped the charges, but he was charged with either manslaughter or murder.
He was an Asian fellow, wasn't he?
Yeah.
You think you want to keep the names? I guess whatever. This is like pre-internet, right? So it's like, it's a little different. So you can kind of get away with just like nobody's got like it would be so fast.
How many Chinese snipers are there though? They think that this would have been an obvious fucking optics loss.
I mean, Andrew Dice Clay could really make hay with this.
They were like, look, I really can't drive the van. Somebody toss this guy a drink.
Yeah, you just got to take dental floss around the sniper scope. I know what you're gonna say. I'll beat you to it.
But I mean,
yeah.
They say that Vicky Weaver shot was a hell of a shot, but even more so for an Asian guy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, moving on. What's it called? So this was so they set up this is some kind of like esoteric information. They set up a spot in front of the front of the building, and they also by the way invited select members of the press, I should mention, to view at that side of the building. And also they set up another one that was not visible to many people because it was A, behind the building, and B, it was nowhere near any main roads. Basically at this point they used all of the MK Ultra mind control agitation research that would later go into the Guantanamo Bay project, including keeping first of all, another thing to mention though, this hostage negotiation thing, it's fraught with deceit. And if you recall the film Dog Day Afternoon, like they lied to them a bunch, like in order to get like what I mean, I'm just saying it would fuck with you being on the other end of that phone, especially when like the Branch Davidians don't really think they did anything wrong naturally.
I've
different than robbing a bank.
It makes me think I've been thinking about what would you do in that situation of talking to a negotiator like that, because they're full of shit and you're kind of wasting your time. But if you stop talking to them, you're just going to get raided straight away. So it's kind of like it's like
get him to admit shit. Like they got him on the phone. They got a recording of him getting him to Koresh on the phone and Schneider, and getting the negotiator to admit that they fired from the helicopters, which is not a part of the fucking the official narrative.
Yeah, there's this Tybo guy was saying that he, who was one of the guys who was inside, the feds asked him
Thibodeau is his name.
Thibodeau. To record a video for his mother, and his mother hasn't seen the video to this day. They were just getting him. They were getting him to record videos because they thought they were going to be weirdos, and if they were weirdos, they were going to put it on TV and say, "Look at these weirdos."
Wasn't it like a weird thing? Also, like it's just this. I saw something where they were like they just wanted to see if they wanted to see if the kids had clean hair. Because they knew if they were washing their hair, they weren't worried about water.
Right.
Oh, that's an interesting. I didn't hear that, but that makes sense.
But the other,
they did fuck up 2 of their water tanks with fucking helicopter fire, by the way.
But the other 2 angles were that if they'd have been like spouting off weird sounding religious shit,
right? They were going to put it on TV and be like, "Look at these fucking weirdos." Obviously, America, look at this insanity. We have to go in there and fix them.
And the other thing is, a future trial, they might say something that incriminates themselves. So the recordings were all that the FBI thought they'd been ever so clever giving them video cameras, but really the tapes that they made inside were they only really worked for the Waco people because they were, you can tell when someone's being genuine, and they're not you can tell they're not lying, and they're pissed off, but they're not acting angry. You know what I mean? They're saying
they seem like normal fucking people. And there's a great documentary that's free on Prime. It was actually nominated for an Oscar for Best Documentary Feature, and it's called Waco: The Rules of Engagement.
Yeah.
And like I said, you can get it on Prime, and it's got a lot of footage of inside they did like straight up, like somewhat, I mean, obviously it was fucking VHS and, the sound kind of sucks, but the way they framed the shots looked like that somebody who might have had video experience in the French Davidians.
Well, I'm sure they did because they were into music and shit, weren't they?
That's true. Yeah.
They were doing their own propaganda, religious propaganda.
Dude, that was one of my, like I said, I rewatched the Frontline on this, which came out at the time, so there wasn't like a ton of information about it. And when they got to the part where like eventually, the fucking the FBI just tries to blast them out with music, they were playing didgeridoo music.
Yeah.
And then fucking Koresh started playing his own music.
Yeah.
And his speakers were better than the FBI.
That's pretty funny.
You have the head negotiator go, yeah, he had a good system.
Yeah.
You got to. I mean, whatever you think about David Koresh, there's many aspects of him that are totally based.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he was hot for one thing.
That's all you, dude.
He was a hot guy.
One of the things that I wanted to say though is, like I said before, like they use these tactics of keeping you up for multiple days on end. They use it in Guantanamo Bay, and it's like a well-established intelligence gathering / psychological fucking warfare technique. And one of the things, like, dude, they were fucking like some of the shit they were doing, like they played on loop at like as full volume fucking These Boots Are Made for Walking. And just think about the subtle lyrical implications of that song. These boots are gonna walk all over you. Like that fucked with me. I was listening to them fucking play that. Like
I don't know. I thought that's so unsubtle that it's like.
But maybe
I could
that's
just see some.
They had a lot of fucking tests done on fucking unwitting psychiatric patients through the 50s and 60s to figure out whether that works or not.
I don't know. That I think the Nancy Sinatra thing comes across to me as more of some dumb asshole Fed going, yeah, these boots are made for walking. That's funny.
Maybe they also played rabbits being slaughtered.
Yeah, I think that comes from the experiments.
Yeah, that definitely fucking does. Yeah. I don't know if you ever, I have a rabbit, and I don't know if you've ever heard the noise they make when they're in pain. It's fucking chilling. It's a human-like, actually.
Like pigs.
Yeah, a little bit. But anyway, what's it called? So what was I just saying?
There's an FBI aspect to this as well, because again, we're talking about, this is the very early days of the first Clinton administration after George Bush Sr. And the outgoing FBI director, who, well, he didn't realize he was outgoing until this happened, was William Sessions. And he didn't approve of this shit. He wanted to go down there and negotiate with him himself. So that way they would be negotiating with somebody who, that, you know, that they weren't just talking to one guy. Yeah, exactly. Because they were talking to the negotiators, and the negotiators were earnestly agreeing to this. And then the a bit like, do you remember what was that fucking TV show, Mary Tyler Moore, but it was about cops, Hill Street Blues. They had that SWAT team guy who wore glasses like this, and he was always wanting to, you know, whatever the other officers wanted to do, he always wanted to just drive a tank through the wall and shoot everybody. It's kind of like that. So the negotiators were trying to bring it to a peaceful resolution, and whoever was in charge of the tactical team was going, "Nah, fuck you, you fucking hippie," and doing something stupid. And so, like, if they'd have had Sessions there negotiating, he had the authority. Yeah, if you're going to have negotiators, they've got to have authority over the tactical team, really, haven't they? Otherwise, there's no point in having them. They're just bullshit. And
that was one of the main things with the music, right? Is like Koresh called the negotiator and was just like, "That's some nice music you were playing for us last night," and they had no idea it happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
They were just both getting approval for things.
Yeah,
right. Like, and then not telling the other, which is crazy because like we all heard about that like during 9/11, where it was like the CIA,
the CIA versus FBI. Yeah, cross chatter.
FBI.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like,
it just goes to show you what happens when you make it bureaucratic. Like, you know what I mean?
So what happens was Sessions had booked a flight. But
then you mix in death.
He'd got a plane fueled up, ready to go down to Texas to sort this job out himself as the boss, which is
real J. Edgar Hoover.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And he was going to.
Except he probably didn't wear women's underwear.
Yeah, he was going to go down there and sort the job out, or at least try to.
Unless that's part of the being FBI director, is that you have to wear women's underwear, which I would not be surprised about.
It's a uniform, you know. You really know you have the world. You have the world intelligence by the balls if your balls are being, caressed by lace.
Yeah.
Yes, some nice frilly pink unit.
Every time I watch a documentary that features the FBI, and they always show you a shot of the J. Edgar Hoover building, and that just shows you the amount of accountability there is in the federal government, i.e., zero. Is that guy is widely regarded to be a degenerate, fucking evil motherfucker by everybody to this day, and he's still got
blackmailed his way to become the first iteration of the deep state on paper,
and he's still got his name on the building. They don't take, they pull down statues all over the place, but no one's defaced the name J. Edgar Hoover on the J. Edgar Hoover building. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous. That's how little accountability there is. You can be the worst person ever and fuck everything up forever, and they'll still pay your pension and say you're okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, people still hold Kissinger in high regard. He's in all those Nixon tapes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's still alive somehow.
At the very least, he comes out every once in a while to get mad at something. But he's in all those tapes. He's in like the worst ones where Nixon's calling everybody in San Francisco a fag. Yeah. It's like this guy, every time he's got an op-ed, every time he's mad about something, he puts out an op-ed, and we all have, it's like him, and I thought him and Noam Chomsky were the same guy for a while.
Yeah.
They both look like Nosferatu a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's like, Henry, you see, the Jews are the ultimate spies. And he's just like, yes, Mr. President.
There's penises to make them more aerodynamic.
You guys have all got snip penises. I've got an anteater. Very small, though. It's more like a maggot, actually.
Anyway, so this went on 51 days. And you know, the negotiations they actually did get somewhere. This is the thing that they don't really talk about, is that part of his objective was to figure out theologically a way out of this.
Yeah.
Because he had kind of painted himself into a corner by being like, well, we're going to all get killed by the forces of Babylon. And these guys are definitely them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what do I do here? This is supposed to be the end, and he doesn't want to let these people die. He cares about them ostensibly, and a lot of them are his actual kids.
What happened was that those Christian radio guys, convinced him to write down his interpretation of the seven seals, which by all accounts was fucking dynamite. And he says, that's fine. I can give me another 2 weeks. I can do one every 2 days. And he got this chick to type it up for him on a computer. Presume he dictated it. Take this down, Doddy. And, yeah. And when you finish, take those down. So he'd written the first one and had started on the second one already, but the negotiators were all very pleased with how it was going. And but the tactical guys just said, fuck this, let's go in, because Sessions had been replaced by this time by a guy called Floyd Clark, who was the new FBI director, and he was all for muscular, because it was like, I mean, this happens here. I mean, we elected Boris Johnson, and we've basically got a communist government now. Because we didn't elect the communist, and it's like your Joe Bidens and your Bill Clintons tried to out right wing the right wing when they on Law and Order when they were in power in the 90s, and so like,
I kind of think that was more about getting that was less about appealing to the right wing and more about getting the fucking black church lady vote.
Yeah, maybe. Little column A, little column, but it's the same thing. Like that. So the Conservatives came to power.
Sensibilities are similar.
The Conservative.
Well, that's the thing, is like that was the most. So black people always reliably vote Democrat in the United States.
Yeah,
and that was the most reliable voting block of black voters at the time. Now it seems to have shifted.
Well, the Conservatives came to power here last time with on the back of a massive
obese
of kind of left-wing nationalist support, if you know what I mean. So they got the white underclass and working class. There's hardly any working class left now, but the white underclass vote, and so they're pandering to them now. And so we've basically got some kind of crypto fascist mass fascism. Well, it's not even crypto; it's fascism masquerading communism, just like they have in China.
So finally, like you said, they got sick and tired of waiting, essentially, and they got approval from Janet Reno, who, depending on who you ask, either was lied to or we already knew she was a complete fucking liar, but I mean, is even more of a liar, like under oath liar.
I have a question about Janet Reno, because I've never noticed this before my researches for this episode.
Yes, it was the big boss man.
What, did she have Bell's palsy or something? Because throughout her entire testimony to the congressional hearings, she was flapping her bingo wings like that. She's like shaking like a shiting dog.
I think maybe she realizes that she's responsible for the death of 25 children is what it could be.
So she doesn't always do that. That's just because she was lying.
I mean, let me think. The other thing that was very noticeable with her was the Elian Gonzalez thing, where she's fucking like wearing a helmet or something.
No, but with her, with the Waco thing, it was like crazy because like they don't know. Like, so she claimed that they told her the kids were being abused during the standoff. Right?
Yes, which they clearly weren't.
You would think somebody would have she would have snitched on whoever it was.
Yeah.
There's literally like no memo.
She did a lot of good work for the fucking Clinton administration, dude. She also cleaned up the fucking as one of her outgoing things. She basically put it to rest. Big time. Yeah. So also, she put to bed the Martin Luther King assassination allegations towards the government as well.
So there was a guy called Vince Foster who was presidential counsel, so lawyer for the Clintons,
right?
Who committed suicide 90 days after the
2 shots to the head, back of the head.
Yeah, right. And the FBI tried to review the documents that were in his office, but there were no documents there. But an intern who worked there testified at the Whitewater hearings that he had given a box of documents about Waco from Vince Foster's office to Hillary Clinton's chief of staff. So it's like that's why Janet Reno didn't say fuck all. You get suicided.
Yeah, you're gonna get Vince Foster, dude.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what happened was, and this is the sickest part of the story. I don't like really talking about this, but this is where they. So first of all, let me just say this: we've gone to war over CS gas.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is a similar compound to what is used. A very small dosage is given to. You ask any person who's been in the military that the part of boot camp is you go into a house and you get gassed for about 5 minutes, and then you throw on gas masks, and then you vacate the building. And it's a very traumatic experience. I've heard people argue that it's part of the depersonalization process that is implemented in the Army. But also, more importantly, I think initially it was like literally a test on them. Anyway, so the point is that the amount of CS gas that they were putting into the Waco building was 10 times the amount that they give American servicemen in boot camp.
Yeah.
And they used,
and thing about CS, and when it settles out and the dust settles,
right? I was going to say it's actually not. It's not actually a gas. It's kind of a misleading to call it CS gas. It's actually a powder that you kind of diffuse with a liquid, which could be anything as simple as water, or in this case, for the Waco, they use chlorine gas, which is people have heard of that before. It was first of all, I mean, it's very interesting. I was gonna say this gas attack was the first of its kind in history.
Yeah.
Anyway, what was I saying? So what they did basically was they took these retrofitted Abrams tanks with a gas dispersal system.
They literally just chained like cylinders of gas to the end. They had like a thing for smashing a hole in a building,
right? Kind of like the LA riot police fucking.
But it was nothing fancy. They just had the gas cylinders on the end of the thing, and they just opened the valves and then smashed it into the house.
Right. They also opened up several walls with the tank.
They were trying to tell. Were they saying not to fire out? They were just trying to get Were they announcing to the people in the house that they were trying to get the gas out?
They were announcing to the people in the house, come outside but this is not an assault. Must be the most bizarre thing to see.
And they said, how much scarier is like a fucking backhoe coming through the wall of the shitty ranch house?
We just talked about the fucking killdozer guy. Yeah, tell me about it.
Oh, I love that dude. But I'm just saying, it's like, how much scary? Like, if I was in my house and a guy, you understand a guy with a gun, like a machine just coming into a fucking wall and tearing, and it tore. I was watching some of the footage. It tore straight through the floor, the second floor. They just went right through a window. It just they tore a chunk because it's a shitty old Mount Carmel, Texas fucking ranch house. The fucking storage.
Well, actually, it was they had just built the building.
Yeah, they built it.
But they out of shit materials though, and there was no chance that this thing wouldn't fucking go up. The only piece of the building at all that was that was quote unquote fireproof was the bunker, as they called it, which, as you said before, is basically like just a fucking like a it was basically just a metal box.
Yeah,
but they took out. They drove this Abrams tank round, knocking holes in and blasting gas in, and that accidentally turned this configuration of the building into a fucking pot-bellied stove.
Right.
I guess they never thought of that. You know, I guess.
Also, I mean, most of their light was from Coleman lanterns.
Yeah, because they cut the electric off.
Right.
So that they're like they've got this flammable CS powder that, when burnt, turns into Zyklon B all over the floor. They turn it into a pot-bellied stove, and then
on a windy day, by the way,
very 30-mile-an-hour winds, and they then say, "Oh, this was definitely in fact."
Well, didn't fucking were they stupid enough with it though that like a lot of the FBI guys had to take cover because they were getting fucking gassed?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm certain. Yes.
This is what Joe Biden had to say about it. Oh, hang on.
David Koresh was a bad dude. He ran some bad boys.
He said, "Come on, man."
David Koresh and the Davidians set fire to themselves. Committed suicide. Government did not do that.
There you go. Settled.
Debunked.
Dude,
there's some false information.
Didn't he sounds like
a normal guy, not like a senile old man now.
You know, how he
sounded more like a robot. I think he sounds more like an actual person as a senile old man.
Yeah.
I can see that.
They can program a robot to sound like a person, not like dementia. I don't think they've gotten that programming running yet. You know what I mean?
His stutter was really bad, though, wasn't it, back in 1984?
Yeah. So, no wonder he says so much crazy shit. He said, "Listen, all those black people at Mount Carmel weren't black, dude."
Yeah, the worst guy at the hearings though was Chuck Schumer.
Oh, excuse me. They only used a flash pack, and that is non pyrotechnic. Okay, I obviously know because I'm a New York Jew and I know about flashbang grenades.
But Scott Horton embellishes this tale because what actually happened was one of the defense lawyers gave one of the other gave the munitions expert a bit of Play-Doh to hold and said, because Schumer had been saying, "Oh, flashbangs aren't lethal," which they, in that case, why aren't the public allowed to own them? But they, it's clearly bullshit. But
why couldn't we use them on the 4th?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He got this munitions expert to hold a lump of Play-Doh and said, "If that was a flashbang, would you be happy to hold on to it if I pulled the pin out of it?" And he says, "No way, it'd kill me." And
yeah,
of course, that doesn't change Chuck Schumer's mind about it.
No, obviously not.
It'd be great if somebody had just
It's crazy when you think about
one at him.
These guys. We're talking about Biden and Chuck Schumer. These are still incredibly.
I know it's like, bananas.
Forget about the fact that Joe Biden is currently the president-elect. Chuck Schumer is like the highest ranking.
He's the HJIC in the fucking Senate.
Yeah. I would have used a different letter for the second one, but
what, Kay?
No, it's just 25 fucking years later.
I know it's fucking Looney Tunes. Yeah.
We're still being lied to by the same
dudes.
Dude, and yet, whatever. Just I know we're talking about just real quick. 2 different news reporters I saw today describe the Biden fucking cabinet as like some type of. It's great. They're just boring policy guys. It's like, wait a second. Wait. Those are the same boring policy guys that we all hated 4 years ago. This is the same boring policy guys that, like, since I was 18, I have been rallying against. Yeah. Like, a lot of them are Clinton people, which I learned about because I became an adult. I was 18 2 months before 9/11 happened, right? So it's like, I found out about all the fucked up shit the Clintons were doing that fucking essentially caused 9/11, right? You know what I mean, right? Like, and then Bush fucked all that up. It's like, whoa, we are not
Yeah.
That's not boring.
There's people say,
look, and we got Mitt Romney.
Yeah.
Woo, Mitt Romney.
People in this country say, oh, we should, they should nationalize this industry or nationalize that industry because that way there'll be some democratic accountability. Really? Whoever gets fired for anything? I mean, only the lowest person that they can blame. Yeah, they'll sometimes blame some poor schmuck who was just following orders or who daren't to. It's like I haven't quite figured out what the exact dynamic is, but there's a level where you're at where you get all the shit if something goes wrong, and it isn't the top. And it isn't even near the top.
The thing about this and many, many other things, by the way, the lady who's in charge of the CIA right now was the torture lady. And also she was in charge of the fucking, what's that fucking, the prison in Abu Ghraib. Let's say the lady who's now in charge of the fucking CIA. This is a tale as old as time. And you go right back to fucking Ruby Ridge. You go right back to Waco. Everyone, when they fail, they get promoted.
Yeah. They're promoted past their level of incompetence.
Right.
If they're evil enough.
So anyway, one of the other things was, so like we said before, it was like basically a tinderbox because of the wind conditions and the fact that they only had fucking Coleman lanterns and the fact that the CS gas all over, like the particulate is left behind, which is highly flammable. Also, another couple of the other fucking horrifying things is, and this is something that the FBI was well aware of, is the fact that they don't make a child-sized a gas mask. So the kids that were in there they went into what was known as quote unquote the bunker, but as we said before, is basically just a dry storage room. And they were laying under wet blankets in order to escape the effects of the gas.
Yeah. But notes on the storage room, it was made of reinforced concrete. So rebar reinforced 6-inch concrete. And it had survived a fire before, which is why they hid the kids in there.
Right.
But they pumped a whole Abrams fighting vehicle worth of CS gas just into that small enclosed space with no exit and no ventilation. And it appears that somebody exploded a shaped charge of the type that Delta Force uses on the roof because there was a hole in it with the rebar bent inwards. Which has never been acknowledged or mentioned in any investigation or anything, but it's there on the photographs. And they demolished it, and that part of the roof was missing when they went back years later to try and investigate that. That part of it was gone.
Didn't one of the negotiators come out and say that he was positive they would have known that they would have herded the kids into that room too?
Yes.
Like a few of the guys in the negotiation team were like, no, like this was like very talked about that's where they would put the kids in if we tried to breach the house again. Yeah. Like, and it's just like what the fuck? You lit this house on fire.
Well, I think
30 kids in a fucking unventilated, and didn't like a half a dozen of them have bullet holes in them?
Yeah, many of them did. And some of the
ones in the cafeteria did because basically they
very carefully shot them.
They all shot each other as some sort of mercy killing sort of situation, supposedly.
Yeah, because kids in a fire
went through the chest too, by the way, not through the head and somewhere painless.
Yeah, they
right in center mass where you're trained to fucking shoot.
Yeah. So the press conferences and throughout all the investigations and stuff, the FBI's line was no federal agent returned fire to the building.
Right, and Janet Reno repeated it under oath in the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Well, that would be true if it was not federal agents, but soldiers that did it. And there's a theory that because it was Delta Force, a Delta Force brigadier general and I think a colonel who briefed Janet Reno before the raid was authorized, right? That talked her into it. But of course, they can always deny Delta Force because it doesn't officially exist. It's called something else, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So journalists say we're Delta Force involved, and they just say no because it doesn't exist. And also, they would lie anyway. But
yeah. Plus, it could have been some kind of proto Blackwater situation.
Yeah.
Who knows?
We were talking earlier about the infrared
FLIR, FLIR.
So, FLIR camera mounted on the front of a Cessna that was circling around the whole time. And when people eventually got hold of that FLIR footage, there were muzzle flashes on it.
Very obvious ones, by the way.
Yeah, firing into the cafeteria where all the people with gunshot wounds were found dead. And then they've got the nerve to go on press conferences and before Congress and say, why didn't these people take some kids out and escape? Well, some people
didn't they let a lot of the kids out?
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
they let a lot of the people out just in general. It was just like every time it was literally, I remember there was like a part they're trading the kids for just milk for the other kids.
Yeah, but it wasn't
spoiled milk, by the way. That's a little anecdote
with bugs in it.
Yeah,
they
very mature, the federal government.
But they
you're gonna lose their contract with the Coyotes in the end.
That was another press conference propaganda tactic was to say, oh, he's released these people, he's released these children. Everybody was free to go, according to all the survivors, everybody was free to go at any time they wanted to do. And
but I mean, look, so you're free to go.
Yeah.
So
but they were theologically held there.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's like, I understand that, like, it wasn't strictly a cult in the sense that, like, say Nexium was or something.
Yeah.
Like, but like,
they believed it.
It's pretty hard to like leave anything.
Yeah.
When somebody in power.
Yeah.
A good percentage of the people who did get out wish to this day that they didn't. And like, it wasn't that all I'm saying is that them saying, oh, so-and-so has been released by David Koresh is bullshit. And some people did back down and say, look, I want to go. Like one woman, she wanted to see it. Her daughter was in custody of the county. And she said, look, I have to get out and look at. No, it was her son. She had a 3-year-old son, and all the siblings had been sent off to foster homes, and this kid was still in together, and they'd separated the 3-year-old, and he was all on his own with nobody he knew. And the news of that, she said, right, I've got to leave. And he says, right, fine, leave. And then they announced that as, oh, he's released this woman. But it's just not the case, according to her.
I gotta wonder if before they did this raid, the ATF had to have called up the CIA to be like, this isn't one of your guys, right?
Maybe, yeah, like they did with that.
The Finders.
Whose man's is this?
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so before we finish up there, so the effects of the CS gas, particularly with the chloride liquid base, this is like basically the same mixture that in like the 1900s they would use for gas chambers as like what's it called for execution in prison. And the reason why and the reason that they tie up a person who's getting gas in a gas chamber is because it makes your muscles contract like crazy. And it's technically cruel and unusual for the witnesses to witness him buckle up like that, apparently.
So some of the kids that they found,
they were completely.
They'd severed their spines with their own muscles from the effects of the Zyklon B.
It's really fucking bad, dude.
And they tortured those children by how can you pump fucking gas into a room full of kids?
Not just that, but I mean, like keeping them up all night with the fucking noises and shit. Like, I don't know, giving them fucked up milk.
Yeah. Like, I always drink my milk. What?
With vitamin R, dude. Anyway, so and again, also that the infrared system was able to pick up distinct flashbangs going off, which would obviously have activated the flammable liquids and powders that were all around the place. And it's of no surprise that after the thing had fallen, they did a pretty good job of driving over it a million times with heavy machinery. And in fact, the county investigators, like the county medical investigators, came, and they were incensed, obviously, that the personnel had just basically ruined their crime scene. And there's even an anecdote about how the FBI actually took pretty innocent like video footage of them just showing the area for the official county report. Like they did a really thorough job of covering this fucking shit up.
And all the evidence, they sifted it and washed it with Clorox. There's video of them doing that as well. It's great.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
The crazy is like the house goes up. How, like, what is the official story of how it went up so fast? Because I've watched the video.
The official story is that they had earlier in the night, actually at 6 a.m., in fact, they had supposedly taken flammable liquids and laid it around the place in an attempt to commit mass suicide a la Jonestown.
Yeah. But
wait. They're saying that they were trying to gas themselves?
They were trying to immolate themselves.
Oh, okay.
Right.
But that might be true. But Scott's going to put some links in the show notes here. There's some good interviews and documentaries and stuff, which, if you think I'm coming on too strong about this, then check it out. But they're, so the, what's it called? Tybo, or the Thibodeau, who's
they're two different names, dude. I know what song, what name they're talking. You're thinking of T-Boat, which is a French name, but so is Thibodeau. It's a different name.
Thibodeau got in, who was in there, and he was one of the guys that escaped. Now,
he was David Koresh's drummer, by the way.
Yeah, nobody who got out through a side of the building that wasn't visible to a TV camera survived. That's why nobody got out the back, because the TV cameras couldn't see it. And
as we mentioned before, there was a sniper's nest set up there, possibly with an Asian guy that killed a lady a year earlier.
Yeah. And so according to Thibodeau, he doesn't recognize, they have these voice recordings of people plotting something to do with pouring fuel, right? And
his insinuation that they're creating Molotov cocktails.
Yeah, his insinuation. What Thibodeau's point is, he doesn't recognize any of those voices. He thinks that those recordings are fake news. Mm-hmm. But another theory is
it's a deep fake.
Maybe they were making. The recordings are all so bad that you could easily make.
Yeah, audio recordings are easily manipulated.
Yeah, and he, the other theory is that they might have been making Molotov cocktails to defend themselves against the Abrams fighting vehicles, which is what Molotov cocktails were invented for.
Mm.
But sure. Or maybe they did set themselves on fire. But even if they did, they
shouldn't have been in that situation in the first place.
But they had no reason to believe this was all of a sudden coming, did they? I guess it had been gone on.
Yeah, they started knocking. Because the alleged pouring of the fuel was before they started pumping the CS gas in.
Oh, so, right, yeah.
So it doesn't make sense on the timeline thing.
They had been having productive conversations at that point, right? They had brought back.
Yeah, they thought that they were going to be able to talk their ways out of this.
Yeah. So now, I think, let's say that the feds did set the fire. And they did fire incendiary rounds into the
100%. That's what happened. Go on.
The fires all broke out at locations where incendiary rounds were found, and I've lost my thread. Anyway,
so what happened was they basically they brought it to a hearing and then issued a final decision. And basically just took no responsibility. Basically, the ATF took quote unquote responsibility but again, all the people who were in charge were promoted.
Yeah.
And it was kind of just one of those things like a public, their public relations wing were like, are bad.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, the FBI, the ATF got their budget increase, so it all turned out all right in the end.
Yeah. And yeah, we're not going to get into it because we're going to do an episode on it in a few weeks. But this obviously directly led to the Oklahoma City bombing. But I have my own theories about that, by the way.
But the Oklahoma City bombing was. I mean, this video of Timothy McVeigh at Waco looking a bit cheesed off. So that's how that's linked. And I think he said it was about that as well, didn't he?
He sure did.
Yeah.
I had one other thing I wanted to get to, but then we'll push off here. Fuck. Your whole fucking derailed thing got me all fucked up, and now I forgot what I was gonna say. God damn it.
Yeah,
Wait,
we've been going too
McVeigh
long.
was a branch. It was a.
No, he traveled down to sit. There were a load of rubberneckers all hanging around in the
that's why.
countryside nearby watching it, and he just drove his car down from. He was from.
I guess not that far.
No, it was pretty far.
Well, he was from Montana or something, I think.
No, he was
the
Great Lakes, where that Bob Seger's from.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, that's
Detroit.
Yeah, so I think he was from Michigan. Yeah.
Anyway, the point is that that was kind of like my whole point. But yeah, so basically another thing about this whole Waco thing, I said before, this is like basically the birth of their no knock. The way that they basically just use this as a test case to be like, all right, America, this is how we're going to treat you as criminals now.
Yeah.
We're going to do this to each and every one of you if we have to. Just don't fucking cross us.
Yeah, and they do it 1,000 times a week now.
Yeah.
It's fucking
literally.
Yeah. And the other thing is, which I just had my mind blown by the great Scott Horton's take on this today.
Yeah, I was going to bring this up. That was the thing I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, this whole thing it's not just been used on Breonna Taylor. It's been used on Saddam Hussein, Muammar Gaddafi. It's the same playbook is used to get all these wars started as well. That whole fucking demonize the enemy.
Lies. Well, Saddam, you get the whole fucking babies in incubators, if you recall that.
Yeah.
That bullshit fucking lie.
And then the second time it was nukes or
WMDs. Yeah. Let's not forget. But by the way, that's a thing that just blows my mind is lately where like if I'll talk to some of the people in my orbit where I'm like doubting something from the media and I'm like, you guys do remember, are you too young to remember Iraq?
Can I just say, when people were telling me that I have to listen to John Bolton, I don't know if you guys have heard me on any podcast.
Yeah.
I'm like, can we fucking, that guy, if there's a demon among us.
Yeah.
And I always say this point, and I go, if you don't believe me that he should never be listened to, he tried to get Barack Obama to invade Cuba. Why? WMDs. Actually tried to do that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Less than 10 years ago. And now it's like, well, why would he say this if it wasn't true and he wasn't worried about Trump? Cock blocked him on Iran, and unlike any other president that cock blocked him on Iran, which is 4, he could write a book and make $1 million. That's why.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just amazed that John Bolton isn't Joe Biden's fucking advisor.
He will be. They're gonna wait. They're gonna wait until year 3, and then fucking Bolton's gonna be back in there.
Yeah, with his mustache and I hate people with pink faces. It fucking annoys the shit out of me.
I said this. Me and Brock Johnny both said this the other day. Doesn't he look like when Merlin turns into a crab in Sword in the Stone? Fuck, I hate that guy.
Yeah, seriously.
And here's the thing. I almost hope he gets his Iran war, right?
Yeah.
Here's why. It would be bad. It would be very bad. But it would prove that a war with Iran wouldn't start World War III.
Yeah.
It was never gonna.
No.
Plus, also that'll put the Israelis in the position they need to initiate the biblical end times, and then we'll all get raptured away anyway.
Yeah.
This whole Russia thing as well, the NATO. I've got relatives in Estonia, which is NATO, and they like to use it to annoy Russia because it's right. Tallinn is like a 2-hour bus ride from St.
They do-
Petersburg.
They have like an insane amount of like large scale missiles per capita, like per person.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law is in the Estonian Air Force. They don't have any aircraft. They just do ATC for the Americans and Belgians, whoever's on that patch that month. And but my point is, there is all this thing. Oh well, the whole great game and geopolitics and blah blah blah. And oh god, if Russia invades Estonia, it'll start World War III. No, if Russia invades Estonia, it suddenly won't be in NATO anymore.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's not even going to achieve World War III. It's just going to be, right, yeah, we were just using this as a way of spending money, pretending that we would act this way, but we're not really gonna, because everybody's got nukes. It's like,
Yeah.
It's crazy.
We're not going to risk the bottom line, bruh.
Yeah. So there you go.
If you nuke all the fucking, if you nuke every country in the world, then there's no way that the central banks can derive fucking profit off of all of us.
I mean, this is another real clown world thing that we're going to talk about on some upcoming bonus episode, but I'll just allude to it now. Like, clown world's got to the point where Noam Chomsky is endorsing Joe Biden. Like,
yeah.
Unbelievable. How does that happen? How does somebody piss their credibility away on that guy? It's unbelievable.
He's very old.
Yeah, I guess so. Probably got some.
He doesn't want to get Vince Fostered too.
Yeah, and imagine the amount of hot pussy he's subjected to that would smile at him and look him in the eye if he does the right thing.
Right, that's true. Anyway, I think that's a pretty good place to wrap it up. We got a little bit of current events in there at the end. I think that's pretty appropriate.
Yeah.
Chris, what would you like to plug?
Well, obviously, yeah, High Society Radio. That's Gas Digital, Thursdays at 8. And then Notes of a Goon comes out every Tuesday. New episodes. I just put one out today as we're recording this. I interviewed at the end of the episode. I do my full shtick. And then at the end of the episode, I do about an hour interview with my buddy. About 40 minutes of that, we talk about his job used to be, he was the guy who, when parents wanted to send their kids to boot camp, like on Maury Povich, they would sign their rights away to his company, and then he would go kidnap a child.
Oh, right.
For like $18 an hour.
Right.
We were just talking about this kind of recently, weren't we?
Yeah, there's I heard a kid telling a story that his parents had done that to him, but his granddad, he basically got caught with some weed on him or something, and his parents had wigged out and arranged for this dumb shit to happen to him. But he was all real pally with his grandpa, and his grandpa had given him a 44, which he had under his pillow, unbeknownst to anybody. And these guys snuck into his bedroom, and he fucking blew them away. Killed one of them and maimed the other.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And
anyway,
he walked.
And you're at High Society Chris on
no, that's Reddit. Just at Chris from BKLYN on Twitter that's my main social media.
Awesome.
Sweet.
And okay, so full episodes and everything, all of info at www.historyhomos.com. You can follow us across social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Parler at History Homos Pod. And you can email us with any questions, comments, or concerns at historyhomos@gmail.com. And you can follow me on Instagram at Scott Lizard Abrams. William, any last words?
Ride a horse of a different color.
Later, homos. And this is, how the fuck do you do this?
So you guys
Stop
are rocking
recording.
a Parler account, huh?
Yeah,
He is. I don't even do Twitter. It's too much